Julie Dirksen contests that there are a plethora of books that cover topics of analysis, evaluation, and technology and instructional design, but a deficiency of resources that actually address design guidelines for learning design. Dirksen has over 15 years of practical experience in creating interactive learning experiences for major corporations and university courses that include user experience design, game-based learning, and behavior change. The structure of the book emulates her thoughts on development of learning design as she consistently uses helpful visuals, metaphors, and in-text activities to aid the reader in remembering and contextualizing the material into real-world contexts. She poses a metaphor of someone embarking on a journey that involves various challenges that need to be overcome to get to the destination. Along their way, there are gaps in the learner's path that can often be perceived as knowledge, but could possibly be skill, motivation, or environmental gaps that need to be crossed. Properly identifying these gaps and the goal of the journey are essential when establishing a learning design. Dirksen makes a great point in stating that a lot of learning projects start with the goal rather than the problem, but that puts you in the position of solving problems you don't actually have, while failing to address the real issues. The developer should have the end goal in mind and create learning objectives that are specific, measurable, and applicable to what the learner will experience in the real world. This chart about establishing learning goals is a great example of how Dirksen makes accepted learning theory and practice accessible to all readers regardless of their background. Her synthesis of showing how the various learning gaps and objectives should both be considered in design sets the foundation for the entire book. If the learning gap is identified as a skill, for instance, then it is important to understand the learner's previous experience. Some learners will feel like they are running on a flat path and learn with ease, while others, who are novices, could feel like they are laboring up a steep incline. If the task is learning the controls of an airplane cockpit, a designer could fade out all but a few key controls and gradually add more in as they build from their experience. Others who are more familiar with the subject area could have less scaffolding and have the appropriate level of challenge in their learning. Dirksen challenges the typical structure of learning experiences. If the learning design has a continuous flow of new information, it is like trying to bike uphill on a journey without a break. Learners can become frustrated and exhausted while not retaining what they are to learn. Interspersing new information with practice allows the learner to gain confidence and effectively make it up the learning hill. This is analogous to a video game where the user gains confidence as they learn and practice new skills while successfully making their way to the next level. Sometimes the learning gap can be related to the learner's motivation. Dirksen borrows an analogy from Jonathan Haidt's book, The Happiness Hypothesis, that talks about the brain as being like a rider and an elephant. Design should motivate both the rider who represents controlled thought and the automatic, emotional, visceral elephant side of the brain. The elephant side is bigger and stronger and will tend to control the learner's attention and focus. Finding ways to make learning naturally engaging for the learner could be to use stories, give helpful feedback, solve a puzzle, have interesting dilemmas, use surprises, attract the learner's natural curiosity, or use healthy competition. Individuals have a tendency to set their attention to and base their actions on those they respect the most. Dirksen highlights a successful middle school drug and alcohol prevention program that incorporates high school students talking about their own experiences and how they make good choices. Instead of always listening to a lecture, they include role-playing with their peers to build self-efficacy and facing peer pressure as they would in real life. Dirksen similarly addresses knowledge and environmental gaps for the learner's journey. She also helps the reader understand the importance of attention and memory. The points are established with real-world examples, non-examples, and insights to show effective design guidelines. Her learning philosophy and practice fall in line with accepted learning theory and education, but the use of common prose makes the book accessible to experts as well as novice readers. A full 5-star rating is clearly earned. After some research on instructional design books, it is easy to see the unique nature of this content, as it specifically establishes guidelines for learning design by keeping the learner at the center of focus. I will be able to apply many of the points from this book into my practice as a classroom educator that will help me design appropriate instruction as my students face knowledge, skill, motivation, and environmental gaps along their journey.